with all respect for those who joined already, let's start going. So welcome everyone. It's great to see you all here again, and we're very happy with you again in this first session of our ODA Learning Series of 2021. Last year, as the pandemic hit us all, we moved our ODA capacity building or learning series to an online format. And with this online format, we reached out to over 300 individuals around a community of practitioners and around also selected topics of high priority of our partners. And we also shared the report of what were discussed in these events and shared with most of you who attended. So in case there is need, we can also do that. This year, we will continue with this online version and continue with, again, identified priority topics. And we will start this session with an opening segment, bringing together our UNDP and OECD managers to say welcome to you and to mark this opening launching of the 2021 episode of our series. And then we will move into the first session on digitalization, which is actually a quite a high topic, an emerging topic, especially in emerging in these days as well. So here you will also see, here you also see the agenda. We will have the opening remarks, and then we will have 4 speakers to interact with us also on the topic of digitization. We would like to ask, before moving on, the quick questions also to understand the profile of our counterparts. We have 2 very quick questions to share with you. The first one is about your attendance. So have you attended the ODA Learning Series before? So you can actually choose more than one. I mean, if you attend, so there are 3 options here. So would be great if you could respond to the poll, and we will have another one. Okay, so we see that most of our participants have already attended, so we are not newcomers. Last year, actually, it was most of when this was checked, most of our participants were actually first timers. So it's good to have you rejoin, but we also see that there are about 30% of our counterparts, actually partners, are only attending first time. So we look forward to having you together with us in the rest of the year. And the second question actually aims to understand where you are connected from. I mean, that's would be a very interesting question a couple of more than a year ago. Why would you that matter? But we all know that we are actually working environment change significantly. So please check if you're connecting from home, from office, from cafe, or those lucky ones who are attending from a beach, forest, some apocalyptic bunker, wherever you are. And would be great if you, especially those who are attending from outside of those other 3 options, could be great if you could share with us on chat where you are attending from. So let's see where most of our counterparts are coming from. Unfortunately, home. So we do hope that we will have more attendance from offices. We hope to have more face-to-face interaction, and no one is coming from cafe or others. So would have been better if that was still coming from beaches, but alas. So now we actually, after this brief introduction, I would like to open the first segment to pass it on to Ms. Agi Veres, the Deputy Regional Director for Europe and the CIS of UNDP, to make her first welcoming remarks. Thank you. So it's over to you, Agi. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Berna, and really great to see everyone. As the poll showed us, most of us, unfortunately, are still working from home. But I'm very happy to welcome all the participants, our partners, to today's ODA Learning Series in this virtual setting. I think this is a new reality that we have all gotten used to by now. And what is really wonderful to see that the work hasn't stopped and our connections and networking hasn't stopped. This shows that we are very adaptable creatures. So we are able to continue as much as possible and adjust to our environment. I'm delighted to launch this ODA Learning Series 2021 together with our strategic partner OECD, and I really would like to thank Anna and her team at OECD for co-organizing this learning series with UNDP now for the second year in a row. So despite the circumstances, I really believe that this is a very important moment to look at what we can share on capacity development for emerging donors initiative, and that has evolved into this next phase, where we're really talking about ODA learning and how we are engaging globally. And the reason why it's of course extremely important now, because we have seen over the past year that the COVID-19 pandemic unfortunately set back development, and we have also seen the gap opening wider. And now with the access to vaccines, the access to healthcare services and access to health products has also shown us that the world is still divided, and the digital setting that we live in is also, while helpful, at the same time showed the division and the digital divide of the world. So within this context, I think the support that the newer donor countries can give to developing countries is really significant, because this is not about huge amounts of aid. This is all about the connections, the capacity building, the sharing of experience, especially with those countries that have gone through a similar development path, not as far in the past as others. And I think this kind of learning is extremely important. As you know, under this initiative, we have tried to provide opportunities to learn and exchange experiences on the most pertinent development topics, whether this is about practical skills such as monitoring and evaluation, or more inspirational topics such as alternative finance. And now, given the unprecedented challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm really glad to see that we all found a way to look at this journey and do it in a more expanded outreach. I also very much like to comment our partners, those of you here and our partners who are working with you on this initiative, for this increased ownership and engagement in these events. This is not about UNDP and OECD delivering knowledge. It's about creating a platform in which we can all learn from each other, and we can tackle the development challenges of the developing world in a collective manner much better. As I said, we are concerned that the pandemic is hitting the world's poorest and most vulnerable people hardest. Poverty and inequality are rising. New classes of vulnerabilities are emerging due to the informality and underemployment in severely affected small businesses as well. So our partner countries need our commitment more than ever. We have put forward as the United Nations and as UNDP also an integrated response to the COVID-19 pandemic, including a comprehensive health response. And UNDP has been leading some of the technical work on socioeconomic response frameworks, supporting 121 countries to finalize their COVID socioeconomic response plans. And we know that these are one of the most crucial strategic documents moving forward, as they really are about identifying and developing policy and programmatic recommendations that will help coming out of the pandemic's impact, and also to support the resilience and the recovery, and support the recovery that we hope to see as recovering better. And the designed integrated areas that we have been working in is on governance, social protection, green economy, and digital disruption. But of course, there are very many interrelated areas where support is needed. So hopefully, as the world is recovering now from the pandemic and building forward better towards 2030, we are seeing and we are hoping for a stronger partnership to tackle these issues. And we have been working with many of you hand in hand in supporting our program countries in the region and beyond to respond to the pandemic and to respond to development challenges within the context of the pandemic and the other remaining issues we have, such as climate change and the entire 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Through our regional program supported by Turkey, for example, by the experts deployed from the Czech Republic, and implementing innovative solutions in partnership with private sector through the Challenge funds, which I think you will hear an example of today. And as an example, the Boost initiative, which our partners from Poland and the Slovak Republic, together with others, designed and launched, and the Russia UNDP Trust Fund for Development. All of these examples and cooperation have been really providing much needed support to partner countries on the socioeconomic recovery as well. I am also very pleased to see our partners from the Czech Republic has chosen digitalization as a topic of the first webinar of this year's series. And UNDP set out on a journey of systemic digital transformation last year with the adoption of our digital strategy. And now during the pandemic, we have seen how the whole digital response from governments has leapfrogged, and we have been supporting governments to move critical services online, and we were able to adapt existing digital tools to provide governments with comprehensive and timely information for their evidence-based policymaking. Across UNDP's global network, over 250 digital responses to COVID-19 emerged. And I think, these are examples that we really need to look at and see how we can share and how they can become part of a longer term and sustainable development response strategy. More recently, I also wanted to share with you that we have been working closely with WHO and UNICEF and partners on deploying digital solutions for vaccine delivery and health systems, strengthening by using data analytics to drive greater equity in vaccine distribution. Clearly this is emerging as a development issue. Which nations and which countries, depending on their level of development, have access to vaccine, are able to develop the vaccine and distribute the vaccine as needed. In other words, digital, I believe, can be and is already a great tool that can increase the resilience, as we have seen during this pandemic. However, the real challenge is, what about the 3.5 billion people who are not connected, the elderly, the disabled, the ones with no access to energy or broadband? And what about the billions who have access to broadband, but not to the value that their data generates? The real challenge is not so much achieving digital transformation itself, but the transformation for real sustainable development that is good for both people and the planet, and that at the same time leaves no one behind. So we, as the development community, and working very closely with you who are concerned and engaged in global development, have an important role to play. And I very much look forward to today's discussion, but not just this discussion, but continuing this journey with you to tackle these development challenges through strong partnerships. Thank you very much. I stop here, and I'm looking forward to the exchange on this ODA Learning Series 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Agi. And then we will move to Anna from OECD, and with thanks again for all the contribution and fruitful partnership of OECD both last year and for the upcoming year. So I'm very happy to introduce you to Ana Fernandez, Head of Foresight, Outreach and Policy Reform Unit of Development Cooperation Directorate of OECD. Okay, the floor is yours, Ana. Good to see you.
Thank you so much, and it's very nice to see you all and to be here with you. I hope you are in good health and your families also, due to the circumstances. Thank you so much, Agi, also for kicking off and for this partnership. We are very pleased to partner with the UNDP in this ODA Learning Series, and to continue this partnership also with all of you participants. I think Agi has mentioned it, and I could not say it better. This is a process where we would like to learn from each participant, and we would like also to engage with you in thinking, how can we improve the impact of development cooperation system? So we are very pleased to be part of this partnership, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from all of you during this year, also of 2021. We have very interesting topics throughout the year that were going to be discussed with all of you, namely questions related with green financing, questions related with the nexus between humanitarian and development. I think we are trying to grasp the most challenging questions that we have to face, all of us in our community of development practitioners, to try to really create resilience in our systems and to promote impact and to be faster in responding to the needs of the citizens. I think that's the main goal of all of this. So no pressure, high ambition, but no pressure. Don't worry, we will deliver together on the plan. But let me share with you also some thinking from our side on the main challenges that we are facing. We have been in the OECD also addressing some of the questions related not so much and only about the COVID impact crisis, but also about that. But the question that we want also to address is, what did we learn from this crisis? What are we learning from this crisis that can help us build stronger and more resilient systems and can help us also modernize the way we do development cooperation? And I think that's the big question that all of us are interested also to try to contribute to. So we have been developing a lot of evidence around the impact of COVID in questions related with economics, of course, related to social impact. And we all know that the impact in the implementation of the SDGs is also very, very substantial. We know, for instance, in terms of financing gaps, that we moved for a need of around 2 trillion US dollars before the COVID crisis in terms of financing needs. And now with the data from 2020, we are already on the double of that. But we also know that most of the SDGs are lagging behind, and we need to try to have a strategy to recover from that lagging behind. And it's very difficult for governments at this stage to manage the competing priorities they have. So how can we continue to have development cooperation at the core of those priorities? How can we continue to have partnerships and global investment in global needs as part of those priorities? And I think that's something we can continue doing our here and try to find innovative answers, and also supporting the answers that are already there to scale them up. So the question for us is also how we get out of the crisis stronger, more resilient, and better prepared for the next crisis. And how can we get out of this crisis building back better, and also having more and better policies to promote better lives? So I completely agree with what Aji was saying. You know, that's the big challenge that we are all face together. We had produced the development cooperation report, and in the development cooperation report, which is one of the main reports that we produce at the Development Cooperation Directorate at the OECD, we came out with some ideas to address this crisis. And I'm going to just mention some of them. So the idea that we need to adapt and change the system to really accelerate development progress and adjust to future shocks is fundamental. We can integrate climate action in a multi-sector development strategy. We can provide long-term support to country systems. We should avoid a development financing crisis. Step up collective action also to provide and protect global public goods, and develop strategies and contingencies for international crisis coordination. So these are some ideas that we put together in that report, and we would be very happy to share more with you on this. Also looking ahead, and we are trying to use also foresight tools in my team and in the Development Cooperation Director to advance some thinking on looking ahead. We produced a paper about scenarios for the future of development cooperation in light of the COVID crisis. And one of the scenarios is around the topic of today, which is a development cooperation digitalizes, and how much that will impact in the way we work with our partners, in the way we ensure inclusive access to digital tools, the way we use innovative instruments like blockchains or digital platforms to advance development cooperation partnerships. So there is a lot about how that will impact in the way we work together. There is another scenario that we put forward in that foresight paper, the power dynamics and the shift of power in terms of the multilateral system. I'm not going to enter in detail, but I just wanted to mention the other two scenarios. One, it's about more locally led development cooperation activities, focalizing much more on the localization of the interventions and also in the partnerships with other stakeholders beyond governments. And also stakeholders that come from the global south, not only stakeholders that come from the so-called global north. And the final scenario that we put forward was a new development cooperation architecture that focuses a lot on this idea of global public goods as a driver of a new dialogue for multilateral organizations and for actions globally. So today we are going to discuss digital. And digital puts a question to the back of our minds in terms of how much do we want to move to a development cooperation system that is more focused on a hardware approach, which is about building schools, building infrastructure, creating expertise in a very traditional way, or how much we want to move from that hardware process to a more software process that could help us to be more agile and also less bureaucratic in the way we develop together these projects and programs. From the point of view of the OECD, there are fundamental values to take into consideration when we speak about digital. It's about open societies, it's about transparency, but it's also about digital inclusion, and it's also about regulation. And we should not forget greening, digital greening. It's very important also to have it in the back of our minds as one of the areas to consider, including in development cooperation, to foster that impact that we are talking about. You have also a reference in your concept note on a paper that we did about the impact of digital on civic space, and we would be very happy also to share more information with you on that. So I stop here, conscious of the time, because the important is to hear from you and to start this discussion. Once again, I would like to thank UNDP colleagues for the great work they are doing, and also all of you for this partnership. And I look forward to our continuous conversation throughout the year, and also to learn from you and to share our expertise and to build together a better world. Better policies for better life. That's the motto of the OECD. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Anna, and thanks also for all these great segue actually to our next session. We're building on the foresight that you have also done in the OECD. So we are actually moving towards the actual session that we will be delivering on digitalization. So I understand, Agi, you will have to leave. So we will slowly get to the speakers. Anna, I hope you will stay. I'm not sure if you'll be staying. I hope you will do. But we will slowly get to the session, and then I want to start with some very brief housekeeping matters and technical information before moving to our first speaker. So we already shared with you some background notes, and for those who haven't received it, we can also share it later with you. That will be shared, but that's the draft one, and that will also be revised based on the discussions that we will have in this session. And the discussions will actually also be held through various modalities. We would like you to input your questions in the chat box, but there's also a mural board that we designed for collecting experiences, knowledge, questions, examples from different partners. So it would be great if you also provide your inputs there. And we will also be collecting and referring to them as we go. So without further ado, let me move forward to our first speaker, Robert Bernardo. Robert is a team leader, acting team leader for the governance and peace building team in UNDP Istanbul Regional Hub. and also policy specialist for capacity development and institutional strengthening. With 25 years of experience in public sector transformation, digitalization, and public policy governance, change management, he will share with us some insights on how digitalization is actually reflected in the Central Asia, Europe and Central Asia region, also in the midst of the COVID pandemic. So thank you, Bob, for being with us. Over to you now for your presentation.
Berna, thank you so much. Let me share with you my screen. I hope you can see this. Can you see my screen now? Yeah. Can you see my screen?
We see OECD website,
but not the
okay.
presentation.
How about this one?
Now we have the presentation.
Okay. See, I was just clicking on the link that our Anna and our OECD colleague shared. But let me just mention that the
Bob, you're back on the agenda now. Again, wrong screen.
Okay, let me see. Sorry about that. How about that?
That's your notes screen.
No, I think if you
do
full screen, I think it will work now, no?
Let me just see what's happening.
You need to go into presenters mode first and tap with Alt Control and then go into presentation. For us to only see the presentation and not the speaker's notes.
Sorry about that. There.
Don't click anything.
Yeah. Yeah, do you see it?
Oh.
Okay. It's again the presenter's view, but maybe we can.
It was just before actually okay. I don't know what happened now.
When it's the slide show, I think it shows the presenter's view. That's the thing.
Okay, it says my screen sharing is paused.
Yeah, you're probably sharing the wrong screen, but never mind.
Let me just, okay, do you see this? Maybe I'll just use this screen.
It's the same.
Oh, apologies. I don't know what's happening at the moment. This.
We are seeing the
What is it?
presentation now.
Yeah, if you go on
That's
screen view, full screen.
Yeah. You see this, the title page?
yes.
Okay.
If
If I go on screen, full screen view, it disappears. So sorry about that. So do you see this one?
yes,
Yeah.
now it's the whole of society framework. So
Right.
I think we can move forward with this one.
Okay, no, sorry about that. So, well, good morning, everybody. I want to start with a presentation on how UNDP looks at whole of society digital transformation. I think what Aggie and Anna shared was a very good segue to this presentation because there's a very strong alignment between UNDP and OECD with regard to our digital transformation approaches. For UNDP as well, our efforts really look at how we can come up with a very inclusive and whole of society approach that tries to address the segmentation between the hardware and the software, or the analog and digital, as our e-governance academy colleagues might also say it. Because what we are seeing is that there's a very big emphasis on infrastructure at the moment. But if we look at the regulations, the people dimension and the government dimensions of digitalization, there's still a lot that need to be addressed. And so what I have tried to do is try to see what are the analog components and digital components of digitalization. that COVID has shown us very much lacking, or there's a huge gap. So here I try to use some of the dimensions that e-governance academy, DESA and other UN organizations are using to look at the analog versus digital components of digital transformation. And what COVID showed is that here you will see that there are quite a few dimensions in red. Those are the areas that COVID has exposed to be very much deficient in terms of digital transformation. So if we look at the alignment with international frameworks, local, legal, national policy frameworks, we're seeing that there's a lot of developments there. We're also seeing that in terms of the e-governance dimension, the focus is much more on e-government, let's say. It's basically using public services, advancing electronic applications, which has to a large extent rather have become quite populistic at the moment. But when you look at how national legal frameworks are actually anchored in human rights, or how they're supporting interoperability or the cybersecurity dimensions, or even on the softer institutional aspects of digitalization, looking at the leadership, for example, change management or talent management, they're still very much missing for many of the countries that we are working in. Now, this is not to say that there are not many advances. There are already a lot of advances, particularly on the innovations aspect of digitalization, and we are seeing that they have also advanced the discourse and also identified how further we can build on these successes going forward. What I would like to highlight, however, is the dilemma that we have. And here I'm showing some of the dichotomies between the hardware and the software and the people dimension of digitalization. On the first two trends you will see on internet penetration and mobile connections, you will see that for mobile connectivity, there's more than 100% connectivity across our countries in the region, which means in most countries, many people are holding more than one phone. Internet penetration is nearly 80%. So if we're looking at connections, just connections per se, it seems our region is very much connected. But if we look at the digital finance, for example, only around over 50% has bank accounts among individuals in our region. Very few, less than 20%, has credit card. And those that are able to have mobile money account, those that don't necessarily have to have formal bank accounts, but are using mobile wallets, are even lower. You will see it's less than 10% even. In terms of gender and the use of online financing, only around 10% or less of women have credit cards, more men has credit cards, more men also spend online. So we look at what we hear sometimes, that digital finance is very much widespread. We are seeing that the trends don't really show it, that there's a huge gap and that we need to address to be able to address the digital financing gap. This graph also shows that when we look at the online services index, the availability of public services online, you will see it's quite high, over 70% of public services are online. At the same time, when we look at the World Bank Government Effectiveness Index, we'll see that it's lower than 30%, which means that the government effectiveness have not really been able to catch up with the digital opportunities and potentials being offered by technology. So this is a big dilemma, and I think this is something that we need to address. Now, this is a rather simplistic, I tried to merge many of the indices that we have, but these are the figures behind this. So you will see that we have some countries that are much more advanced. There are countries, you can look at the red shades, that are much behind compared to the others. So you'll see that in Central Asian countries, the digital transformation issues are much more challenged compared to other countries in the region. But so maybe just to wrap up with regard to some of the challenges we are seeing and the entry points to support long-term digital transformation. And I go back to what Anna mentioned, that we need to have a long-term commitment to it, because digitalization is not just something that we can just overhaul every year or every other year whenever there are new elections that are coming. We need to have long-term commitment and change strategy with clear performance indicators to be able to address the issues that we are facing with regard to digitalization. I mentioned the digital divide is much bigger than what the current indices show. The digital divides are much greater when we look at gender, geography, digital finance, the access to equipment and productivity tools. Sometimes we focus too much on how much of the population is actually connected on social media. But social media is not necessarily a productivity tool that can be used across different public institutions. For example, it has its benefits, it has its risks as well, but the productivity aspect of digitalization is something that we can still advance. We're also looking at the challenge of legacy systems in many of the countries. The data are showing that one of the bigger challenge for digital transformation are the legacy systems. Where around 70% of government institutions are using outdated systems, platforms, applications that don't talk to one another. So ensuring interoperable systems and reducing a dependence on isolated supply-driven solutions by software vendors, for example, is something that need to be addressed as well. Anna and Aggie also talked about transparency, and this is something that's really very important, not only in terms of government transparency, but also in ensuring transparency and competition in the procurement of digital infrastructure and solutions. And here is where a whole of society approach would be really crucial, to allow governments to really come up with informed decisions on which applications or which integration platforms can actually be more useful in the long run to governments and which will be most cost efficient. Learning and capacity development, something that's really very important. And we are seeing that COVID has really demonstrated how many governments, whether at the national or local levels, are looking at digitalization from very different perspectives. And there's no one definition of digital transformation. But there's also a lot of misconception around it. And therefore, having a common understanding of what digital transformation is, what can it offer, and how it can actually be advanced in either an incremental basis or through an accelerated way is something that needs to be discussed in a much more systematic way with our partner governments. So for example, UNDP is working with a number of countries to do digital readiness assessment together with our chief digital officer. And we are seeing that it's actually unveiling many of the challenges with regard to reskilling and future skilling in the public sector. We're also, one of the challenges we're also seeing is that many governments talk about advancing to the fourth industrial revolution in 5 years in a very accelerated way. Which is a very ambitious target. But at the same time, we are realizing that these governments also don't have data and data strategy in place. And we know very well that to advance into robotics, artificial intelligence, and many aspects of the fourth industrial revolution, data and data strategy are key. So this is an attention that needs to be addressed. And I think the people in this room would have a very strong role to play, in advancing data and data strategies.
I think we will have to wrap up to keep up with the time.
Okay, just a couple of points. So just on public service delivery and e-services, I think there's a lot more that can be done. Also in greening, looking at so many other aspects of digitalization that need to be advanced. We're also looking at cities and local governments. These are very good entry points for advancing digitalization and accelerating its adoption on the ground. I'll stop here. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for drawing attention to some of the challenges and issues facing our region and key consideration for those who actually are targeting development cooperation in this region. So we will move now to the next speaker, but just to remind you, please, if you have any questions for any of the speakers, please put it in the chat box, then we will revert and have a Q&A session. So the next segment is actually devoted to Estonia, which is actually the country in our region characterized with a very high level of digitalization and also mainstreaming in services. So the solid experience, they're here for us to share the solid experience that they have generated. And it's not only for the Estonian within Estonian borders, but it's actually also the knowledge and experience that they have shared with the developing partners. So I am happy to now pass the floor to Hannes, who is the executive director of the Estonian e-governance academy. As the senior expert on the information society, he is responsible for digital transformation in the public administration, and he has a wide range of experience in various regions and continents in Central Asia, Caucasus, Africa, South Pacific, Caribbean. So he has also been closely working with both the Ukrainian national government governments for e-governance development. So I'm happy to pass it on now to Hannes to share with us how actually the development objectives can be better reached through digitalization and how we target how we work with the countries. Over to you, Hannes.
Thank you very much, and happy to be participant of this webinar. And my name is Hannes Astok. I'm working for e-Governance Academy, and e-Governance Academy is a competence and knowledge sharing center what has been in business already for 18 years. And I'll do a short presentation, and I will discuss the topic based on our experiences, and it will also consist some hints for the possible donors how to work with the countries in the preparation and implementation of various digital transformation projects. So I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, good. So e-Governance Academy is a non-profit, non-governmental organization that has been in business for 18 years, and we have been working so far with more than 130 governments globally, and covering very well also the region. What is the topic for today's discussion? And we are working based on donors financing. So our main donors are European Commission, various governments like US, Swedish, Estonian government, but also other international organizations like UN organizations, and very much UNDP, World Bank, European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, and so on. And just for a couple of samples of types of project we are currently implementing, we do e-government infrastructure and services in Ukraine, e-government roadmap in various countries, developing e-government infrastructure in some African countries, digital identity solutions, various anti-corruption solutions, and so on in almost all continents. So what are our main lessons learned, what I want to share with you? As Robert already mentioned, there are like digital and analog elements of e-government. And digital elements, as Rob already presented, are various technical solutions what are definitely cornerstone of a digital government and digital solutions. But at the same time, to be successful with those digital elements, we need also so-called analog elements should be in place. It is sustainable organization, legislation and regulations, financing, change management, and finally the political will. And what we have learned during last almost 2 decades that to build those digital elements, it is kind of mostly a matter of resources. In almost each and every country, we have talented engineers, talented companies who can provide those technical solutions to the governments. But to be successful and make those digital element actually functioning for the nation, for the citizens, and for the businesses, we need a lot of changes in government organization. We need a lot of regulations and legislations to be changed. And it all should be driven by the political will. And what we have seen that actually like 2/3 of our energy in the projects we are implementing is going to those analog elements. And only maybe 1/3 is to the technical part. And this is very important lesson for the project's planning also, because pretty often donors are underestimating the analog part of activities and thinking that this is, if it's digital government, digital transformation project, it is mainly like implementing technical systems. But together with technical system must come all those analog elements and changes. And just to remind you of understanding what are online government enablers, those are like that digital data is accessible, so also my main registers are in the digital format. There is secure data exchange available, porter and citizens applications are available, and finally there is also digital identity available for the citizens. And we need to keep in our mind whatever digital transformation project we start in one or another country, that we need to first take a look what is in place and what is missing and what is doable. If something is missing from this picture, let's say strong digital identity, we can do a lot of solutions, what are government to government, maybe business to government, and maybe a little bit less for the citizens, because many government digital solutions need also strong digital identity. We need to identify who is the user of a service. So we need to be a bit critical in this sense when we are starting the project and try to understand how far we are and what we actually can do. And a couple of practical experiences how to plan successful digital transformation projects. There is like 3 pillars for digital government. This is technology, legal framework, and change management. That this is what we need to consider when starting the planning process. And the questions what I put here in 2 slides are pretty kind of obvious, but sometimes we see that they are forgotten when projects are planned. And the key issue is definitely that the project digital transformation project objective should be acceptable for the beneficiary government and implemented and in line with the national strategy. Unfortunately, we sometimes see that the donors are coming with their own agenda, maybe even also with their own solutions, what is not fitting to the current government plans at all. And when it's like a abandoned child in the field, so no one wants to take ownership from the beneficiary government side. Also, the project scope and timeline should be set according to the current needs of a country. And we see in the development countries environment that unfortunately from the government side, the long-term planning is often missing. But this also means that the governments are pretty rapid to make the changes happening. So if we as a donors are making a plan for next 3 years, it may mean that already in second year the objectives are already fulfilled with other donors or government-owned resources. So we need to make sure that what is planned as a part of a project is actually currently needed for the government. Also very important is that the beneficiary is involved from the very beginning for this planning process. I agree that donors and international experts usually know much more what might be the need for the government, but at the same time, if a government is not, government officials are not involved in details, they may later reject the project and really kind of undermine the project implementation itself. And also the budget should be realistic and in line with the objectives. And as I mentioned, sometimes in budget planning, the resources for the soft changes and for the analog resources are missing. Donors sometimes just consider that this is probably the technical implementation cost, but all what is around it should be also covered. And it means time, of working time of experts, convincing government officials, assisting them to develop legislation, regulations, and change management, a lot of trainings. And this should be also considered in the project planning. Well, and once again,
Hannes, you have is a bit less than 2 minutes. Just to
I know, I'm aware. And what is very important that beneficiary organization is interested and motivated. So also it's important that beneficiary organization inside the government is involved in this planning process already from the very beginning. Otherwise, we can see that the planning is done in a very high level, in cabinet level or somewhere in the Ministry of Planning. And those who actually should work with it are not aware at all what we should do and why it's good for them. So to conclude, organizational capability of a beneficiary, technical capability of a beneficiary should be considered. And finally, there should be a political will from the beneficiary. We have seen it in many countries that if a president or prime minister is very much for the digital transformation, things are moving super fast and all the changes what should be done are done in very rapid manner and in very good manner. But if a top management of a country is and political leadership of a country is not involved and not interested, almost nothing is moving. So finally, e-government and digital transformation is a process. It's not one project only. So it should be considered what we can do in long run. And proper planning and political leadership, what should be also supported by organization, change management, and financing, and technology just supports it. So thank you very much, and happy to support and be part of this discussion also in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hannes. And we actually have a few questions addressed to you. I think we'll collect them and address them to you in the Q&A session. Thank you very much for all these insights. And you're very well known in our region too, so good to have you. So we are now moving to Lembit, who is managing the project manager in foreign affairs of Estonia, has experience managing different EU digital development cooperation projects and with various partners, including the private sector and all digital partners. So Lembit, over to you now and look forward to your insights. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the kind introduction. And also I would like to thank organizers for getting together this insightful and already very interesting and full of information event. And I'm looking forward to the continuing dialogue in the future. I also would like to thank the audience and also the distinguished other presenters in the panel. It's an honor to be here with you. And from my side, I would share some experiences from Estonia, some of the repetition, maybe what Hannes said, and also kind of update on what are the different development cooperation partnerships and activities that we're doing. And hopefully it will be insightful for you. Sharing my screen. Hopefully you can all see it. And let's get started. As the time is limited, I will go fairly fast. Let's see. So one of the things that I was asked to discuss was kind of the road to digital. Hannes and then the previous presenters very well presented it already. Just a quick reminder maybe on some of the things. One important thing is that digital is just a tool. That is a very common saying that there is so many other activities around it. But at the same time, it's also very important to remember what a tool it is. The amount of efficiencies that it brings, the amount of clarity and capability to keep track of things, the impact that it has on improving the processes, streamlining the processes, etc. So digital is very important, but it is just a tool behind everything. So it's very important to have a correct foundation to make sure that you're able to manage the identity, to make sure that different systems can work together, not only within the country, but also between the countries and the regions. Very important part is access, in addition to having the citizens and businesses well identified, providing them a capability of actually using the systems. Another parts of digital records keeping or databases where the information is kept, the digital processes, or actually the processes, how can you improve them using digitally, and what are the new capabilities that come into the play. Another important cornerstone, and Hannes very well touched upon it, having the correct legislation, that you can actually do things digitally, that you can do court cases digitally, that you can vote digitally, as in Estonia's case, and any other process, to register births, to register kids to school, everything like this, that you can do it legally using digital tools. Different policies, and very important, organization change management. How do you actually enable the change? Good partners, a really key issue. Good partnerships with other organizations in the public sector, with NGOs. We're enjoying a great partnership with e-Governance Academy, for example, and other organizations. Very important also is a good partnerships between the public and private sector. In Estonia, it was instrumental that when the digitalization process started, that actually three parties came together. It was the public sector, it was the banks, and it was the telecoms that actually really pushed the digital identity and citizens to use the different services, either to log into their bank account, log into their telecommunication services, or log into and use the services from public sector. And also cooperation with donors. Building up e-government and then doing any digitalization process will require money that you have yourself and money that is available through the donors and other partners. Really key part I would also bring out is communication. And I've listed here the learn, copy, borrow, ask, share. I didn't put here steal, don't do that. But really, in these stages, when we started with the digitalization processes, we were actually quite early. So we had to invent quite many wheels here. But these days, there are countries that have great experiences with digitalization and e-governance processes, and also digitalization of the development cooperation activities. So there is lots of learning that can be gained by communicating, by sharing and receiving that information. And also important part is that frugality is a good teacher in having efficient projects. But as Hannes also touched upon it briefly, is the plan for the full life cycle. It's not only the money that is needed to develop the software or acquire software or hardware, but it's also how to train people, how to maintain the systems, how to provide support, how to mentor and provide education throughout it. And also to think about already what happens to those systems in 5 years and 7 years when you have to start rebuilding them. So these are some of the kind of foundational aspects that I wanted to say. But now we'll focus on the different partnerships that we are doing in Estonia or that we're participating in. One of them is Digital for Development Hub. We'll do a bit of a deep dive in this process, as it is a cornerstone and key process for the European Union in the development cooperation. The other part and very interesting project that we're involved with is a digital building blocks or GovStack project. I will share a couple words about this as well. It all boils together in European context or EU context is a Team Europe initiatives. And a Team Europe is a concept that actually got started last year when the discussion and unfortunately the crisis started, of the common approach of the different member states and different organizations within European Union in response to the COVID crisis. And now it has expanded to pretty much anything that European countries and European organizations are doing together. And everything that we're discussing in the development cooperation, whether it's the D4D hub or other activities, they are actually aligned with the different Team Europe initiatives. We are also working on with the World Health Organization on the vaccination certificate, which is of course one of the many efforts in this important area. Also with the DG INPA, we're working with the Team Europe Partnership Portal and the development of this process, bringing together the donors, technical assistants, the financial institutions, and other participants in the development partnership or development cooperation area. Bilateral cooperations with different member states, with different partner states. Right now, we're, for example, doing a deep dive, working together very closely with the EU delegation and also with the UN ODC organization in Kenya, also similar efforts in Uganda and in Namibia and other countries. And also when we talk about cooperation, very important, and we truly value our cooperation with the United Nations, with OECD, the World Health Organization, World Bank, ITU, DIAL, and many other parties, and we're very grateful for this cooperation. So, flying fast or continuing fast, the D4D hub. The hub, it's a bit long explanation of what it is. To make it a little bit clearer, I've highlighted some of the points. It is a strategic platform gathering key stakeholders from EU member states, private sector, civil society, financial institutions in the spirit of Team Europe for scaling up investments, promoting comprehensive values-based rulebook, and fostering a stronger and more strategic EU engagement in the international partnerships. And with the green, I've highlighted that throughout this statement that actually digital. It's all about digital, and at the end of the day, I understand the vision is that anything development cooperation that's digital will actually be aligned or start running through the D4D hub. It was launched on 8th of December last year by the Commission President von der Leyen and heads of state or prime ministers of Germany, Estonia, Luxembourg, and Belgium. And the President Macron was in spirit part of the event. Unfortunately, his video didn't make it, but he's definitely part of it. France is also a key founding member. Altogether, it's 11 members. I've highlighted the first 5 as founding members of the hub. Finland is, and so it's Estonia, France, Germany, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Finland, Spain, Portugal, Sweden, Lithuania, and Netherlands have joined later, and the list is only expanding.
We have about 1 minute left.
Yes, the first project is D4D Hub, or African D4D Hub, and it's continuing with the other regions. The other topic that I wanted to also introduce, or these are different initiatives. I understand that the presentation will be shared with you as well, so I will not dive into those. Now, GovStack initiatives. This is something that is actually, it's in cooperation with ITU, DIAL, GIZ, and BMZ, and it's really a framework of cooperation of kind of on the next level of e-governance services. And it's really building an architecture, a platform of reusable building blocks. And I've identified the building blocks over here. The thought of whole of government and having those building blocks available open source and open API and interchangeable and reusable, and also with advisory and design services. And at the end, I was also asked to share some learnings or key understandings. And here I would just like to bring out the kind of the D4D core principles. And these are the activities or these are the thoughts and these are the core values that we keep dearly when we're talking about not only digital but in all of development cooperation, local ownership and win-win partnerships. And this is something where whenever we're talking with something about projects with partner countries, it's important that they value and they need and they request those projects. Multi-stakeholder involvement, having other parties involved, working together, sustainable and green digital transformation, making sure that we're do everything in a sustainable and green way. human-centric approach. And also very key is data security and data protection as with anything digital. And thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Lembit, for this. And I think we will have more time in the last session Q&A for more elaboration as needed. So without further ado, I'll move forward to Martin to share with us a practical recent example from the Czech Republic. And that's also supported within the context of our challenge fund modality within the Czech UNDP partnership. So I'm happy to introduce you to Martin, who has been active in MEPCO since 2010, and he has extensive experience in developing and leading projects in public sector with local and central level process optimization, benchmarking, and others. And he's also very much involved in the smart city framework. So over to you, Martin. You also have 10 minutes for your remarks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
yes, now we can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. First of all, thank you for introduction and as well for invitation to this interesting series and series of presentations. And of course, thank for all of the participants for your attendance. As it was said, I would like to, in this short presentation, just to talk a little about our activities in Rustavi, Georgia. And from the previous presentations that were more, I would say, top level and talking about large scale initiatives, strategies, and of course lessons learned. I will talk about our small particular activities that we do in Rustavi. In the end of the presentation, I will leave a little space also to my colleague Revas Barbakadze directly from Rustavi, and he can bring as well some little information about our activities. So what we do, and please, I will talk about these other activities from two perspectives. One is the funding perspective, which can be interesting, especially for those of you who are somehow preparing or have some effect on funding opportunities for the donors. And the second perspective will be more about the project itself and the content and its implementation. So the funding perspective, very important to say that our activities in Georgia are funded by the UNDP Challenge Fund. It is interesting for us for many reasons. I would point to main, and this is that this Challenge Fund opportunity builds upon existing practice. That means that applicant is in this case some kind of expert organization and which receives the funding, and then there is a beneficiary which receives the solution. This also enables the space for introduction of already some existing solutions, some existing experience. So we don't need to develop something new, but we are building on something that is already existing and tested. And the second, what is interesting for us, that this funding provides a great space for your own projects. What I mean by that, usually UNDP Challenge Fund, when they prepare a call, they just give some hints what or major goals, strategic development goals they would like to tackle, for example, with some utilization of digital transformation and so on. And it's really upon to you which solution you will provide, and based on it, you are either awarded or not. So this is very great, and it enables to really projects that are created from the bottom, from really the need of the beneficiary, and this is then great also for the later implementation and the sustainability of the project. In this case, we used this UNDP Challenge Fund, and basically we are transferring some experience from Czech Republic to Georgia, and this is mainly based on participation and communication with involvement of some, of course, digital technology. I will talk about it in a little while. So this was the funding perspective. Now to the project implementation perspective, just really the framework of these our activities, and really these activities in Georgia are in tens of thousands of dollars per longer period of time. So we are not talking here about millions or hundreds of thousands. These are a really small project. But with very interesting impact. So in overall, from the project implementation perspective, we see the digitalization as a supporting tool, not an ultimate goal. It's been said in previous presentations several times, and yeah, we can only confirm this. We try to involve the strategic approach to the implementation of our solution. That means that we try really to look at the beneficiary, which is the city of Rustavi, in this case, as a holistic way as possible, and we really try to implement the solution within the existing practice, within the organizational structure, and so on. Of course, with some slight improvements, but still we want to work with what is already existing. This leads to also our third approach. We imply evolution and not revolution. We really try to do it in a small steps, one by one, not to implement something which would really create a huge change, because usually these kind of huge changes are just not accepted in a right way, and then it can be a risk for the project itself. Now to our solution. What we try to implement is already existing solution in Czech Republic, which is very popular in Czech Republic. It's a cloud-based application, Monopolis, and this application is used by most of the major cities in Czech Republic and over 1,000 cities in overall in Czech Republic. And what it enables is to gather some contact or data of citizens and other stakeholders, categorize them in many ways, and then to, if need and when needed, send some mass emails or what is important, short messages as well, so SMS as well to the citizens, to inform about many topics. I put, if you are interested, I put here a link to this application below. They have there is also a video which will give you more information if you need. I put here also a print screen directly from the application. For example, what we can do through when it's fully implemented, even with respect to the pandemic. We can inform instantly through SMS all of the citizens, let's say over 60 years old, that now it is time or the vaccine is available for them, or we can
Martin,
store
sorry,
really
you
a
have
lot of-
2 minutes left, just to remind.
No, I'm already finishing. I'm
Okay,
just
okay.
showing that this is basically a communication and participation platform, and we can really step by step involve the communication with the citizens through this platform. Important for my part to the end. This platform, as I said, is only the supporting tool. There were a lot of activities and outputs and deliverables done together in order just to make this application working and so on. So it needs to be really within the organization, within the processes and so on. And a lot of strategy thinking needed to be done in order to implement it in the right way. And now maybe I would like to ask Revas just for summing up maybe on some synergies with other activities in Rustavi. Revas is directly working in Rustavi, and of course I'm available during our discussion session as well, together with Revas.
Thank you, Martin.
We have very limited time left, and maybe we can move it to the questions and answers.
Okay.
If that's agreeable. Okay, because we have about 15 minutes for Q&A, so we could also spare time for that, if agreeable. Thank you.
Perfect.
So we already have some questions coming from the participants. Let's move to the Q&A session. So, and there is already some questions addressed to specific speakers. So let me start with the questions to Hannes, and it actually starts with Yelena's comment on Serbia's engagement already with Estonia and Hannes specifically in setting up their digital transformation. And the question actually coming from Victoria on the type of countries, which countries have you implemented projects on digital transformation, and maybe talking a bit about their complexities, what issues that you faced, or there's also a question about average project budgets. Hannes, can I give the floor to you now for that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. There are a lot of countries we have implemented the projects, and a very full database of our project is available in our homepage also, www.ega.ee, and when you go to project, when you can select them by country also. I think the key outcome is that, and also it's hopefully answering the question about the size of a project. It's like you can always start with a small scale project if a country is at the beginning or not assessed very much and you don't understand what you need to do. We propose to do digital maturity assessment. We have our own methodology, and I know UNDP has their own, and both are pretty similar. So just to map the current situation in the country, and then through this mapping exercise also discuss with the government what are the priorities and how to move forward. And then based on this assessment, you can already easily select what are the gaps and what is also your interest and expertise to support the country in certain areas. Most of the countries are somehow digital already. Maybe there are some exclusions in Central Asia, some countries, but the rest have done already a lot. So it's always valuable to a little bit evaluate what is done so far, and also very important to discuss with other donors what are in their plans, because unfortunately sometimes there is also kind of donor competition and no communication between the donors, and governments are shopping with donors and sometimes also do not tell what is already approved by one or another donor. About average size of a project, you can start with a digital maturity assessment, what is usually like around $50,000-60,000 US. When it's like a more strategic approach, strategic documents development, it is usually like around $150,000-200,000 US. And when it's technology implementation, when it's very much already depends what you do, and what is the scope of a project. If it's like a national data exchange system, secure data exchange system, it may cost several million dollars. If it's digital identity rollout and the ID cards rollout, then it's very much already dependent on the population of a country. But yeah, so it's very much dependent on each and every project. But the key issue is always to be in very close cooperation with a beneficiary country and beneficiary government and special section of a beneficiary government. Like if it's about digital identity rollout, it should be usually Ministry of Interior. So to make sure that the donor project are targeting the right task and the right question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And I don't know if there is any other question to Hannes now that we have him unmuted. I don't see anything else on the chat. Maybe if for the interest of time, we can go back to actually Revas to share his experiences. I'm sorry for having to skip it, shift it to this session, but we're also very much interested in hearing from you on how you mainstreamed and interacted with other services. Over to you, Revas.
Thank you very much. I will take just a couple minutes for your time. Hello, dear colleagues. Thank you for inviting me in this session. I just want to add some information about things that are happening in Rustavi about digitalization issues. As our participant told, as our organization is work, our main tool, one of the main tool is intersectoral cooperation. Because it's very important and very effective way to do good things in the city. The last year, because of COVID, there started a problem about this because it was impossible to gather and to discuss and to make conferences or something like this. That's why in this way it's very important to develop the digital instruments or create new digital platforms where local governments and local NGOs can make this kind of cooperation between the sectors. Also, the other thing what we are doing in Rustavi for developing the digital issues is that we are creating a blockchain center, blockchain educational center for young people. It will support digitalization and also it will support the alternative employment of young people. And the very interesting case and very interesting instrument, what we did last year, we created a chatbot of Rustavi municipality, city hall. It's a chatbot. We are including all the services what Rustavi city hall has. It's very unique project. I don't know in Georgia and also in post-Soviet territory if somewhere is product like this. It's a municipal service. It's a service of municipal. It's a municipal chatbot of services. The name is CBOT, and our CBOT was awarded as best practice in Georgia a couple of weeks ago by National Association of Local Authorities. And I think that it's really very interesting product, which is also support the digitalization and increasing, involving and informing the people. But here is one aspect, little lesson what we really saw, that of course there is a problem with local authorities and with people who are making decisions in digitalization process. But there is also a problem from other side, from citizens, because many citizens cannot understand, cannot see why these kind of instruments are important, and also if this instrument is not work little bit probable, if this instrument has little problem, it means that the trust of citizens is become low and low about digitalization. I think we also have to work with citizens, with just people who are main beneficiaries of these digital products. Thank you very much. This is what I wanted to say.
Okay, thanks a lot for your reflections and the experiences in your municipality, Revaz. So I also see a lot of questions and answers happening in the chat, but I also see many questions from Maksud Aripov, and Bob responded to some of them, but I just like to ask if you would like to pose any further questions if you received your responses. I mean, let me also raise this, Maksud. Or if you received your responses, okay, that's also fine. Okay, good to know, just to check. And there's also some questions also coming from the mural board that we can also continue to actually come up with some inputs. But I don't know if there are any questions that I'm missing. I'm also checking with our colleagues, or please raise your hand if you have also any other questions. We're slowly wrapping up this Q&A session and coming this event as well towards the closing. Any questions?
I was thinking, Berna, this is Saran. This question on mural board about the one that says the ODA agenda primarily focuses on digital capacity building. Can ODA be invested in building new ICT infrastructure or used to renovate existing ones? How? Through grants, concessional loans, or private sector? Vicky answered to this already from Slovakia's experience. Thank you, Vicky, for that. But I was thinking maybe this is a good question for all our speakers to close, in a sense that what, in your opinion, would be a good role? I mean, like this is a role, the question, right? For ODA providers. What is the role of an ODA provider in advancing this digital transformation for development? If you could maybe share your thoughts in 2 sentences, if that's possible, is my question from Mora. Over from my side.
Yeah, my answer is that I think either different countries and the ODA donors may have various perspectives of support for various countries. I think this kind of thinking about cross-cutting digital part of a project might be helpful, because today's economy globally and today's governments, it's almost in everything you do, there is a very strong digital component is existing. If you're supporting agriculture, there is also in agriculture, let's say, very strong digital component. How we count the fields, how we count the crop. Can we do more better land use by using digital tools, and so on and so on. If it's healthcare or social services development, you can do a lot with digital. So please consider the digital aspect also. It's not necessary that it's just a digital project, but if you're focusing on social security project, just consider that one component of this project could be also what we can do better with digital. This is my understanding. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe just add a couple of points. I think what's really important is to understand what's really going on and the digital transformation aspect of it. We are realizing that, for example, in a number of countries we're working, we have donors working within the same ministry on similar or very much related issues, but those are not talking to one another, or the systems that are being developed. And therefore mapping out what the different partners are doing on digitalization, for example, before we pursue some of the initiatives that we have committed to do in a particular country will be extremely useful. So in Kyrgyzstan now, for example, we are doing a mapping now of digital transformation needs, just to make sure that the work that other donors, that we are complementing the work that other donors are doing and not duplicating them, and really coming up with more of an integrated approach to digitalization. I think all of us at the end of the day are looking at strengthening national systems, national capacities. And there is tremendous opportunity, for complementarity and partnership around these areas. So that's, I think, one important area of a partnership that we can explore going forward further. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone to add on this? Colleagues, maybe our development cooperation partners, participants. Okay, I think with this, we can slowly wrap this session and continue. Actually, we already have shared the link on the mural board. It would be great if you continue to add your inputs, questions, and answers to those as well. So thank you very much to all of our speakers for this very useful and insightful session, and which is actually very timely also, especially considering the issues, emerging topics with digitalization and the last couple of in the last couple of years with all of our counterparts. And it's clear that there is a lot of emphasis and focus on digitalization in various strategies and assessments. And it's really, it has been a great opportunity to collectively discuss with all of you the ways, the challenges, how to address it, the experiences, and so far. So with this note, we are coming to the end of this session, and just would like to briefly invite you to the next upcoming session in next month in April. And it will be focusing on volunteering for development cooperation, and it will be led by our hosted by our colleagues from the Russia partnership. So we will be coming with more information on that, but volunteering is also another emerging modality and cooperation aspect in development cooperation. So we look forward to having that discussion, and we also look forward to having all of you there. And it's great to see many of our counterparts, partners here. So in closing, I mean, with many thanks, I also would like to ask if we have Sydney, I don't know if you would like to add anything. I think, or Anna, I also see Anna too. So in closing, let me also pass it on to Anna to share her brief notes as well. Thank you very much.
No, just to say this was a very interesting discussion. I was taking some notes also for our reflection at the OECD. So very, very interesting. I think the question about what donors can do and how can we support these in an effective way, it's also important to take into consideration the reality and the context on the ground and the priorities of the partners in advancing their own national strategies. And I think this is a very important point, because now that digital becomes global, the different needs on digitalization also vary depending on countries and contexts. But I think it would be also good for us to have a kind of a deep dive discussion about how much we want to advance on questions related with e-governance, e-participation, and what are the models to advance that kind of trustful relationships between governments and citizens in each one of the countries that we are working with and partnering with, to really put this relationship at the center of anything we do on digital. I think there is a lot of sometimes mistrust from citizens vis-a-vis why are governments now using more technology, and also why are companies now using more data from us in a sense, and a lot of misconceptions around privacy and around data and use of data. So I think it's very important that we also work together, including in the context of development cooperation, to build that trust through regulation, but also about priorities and red lines in a sense from what this community thinks should be the red lines. So I think with that, I would stop and thank again all of you for a very interesting discussion. And we stand ready to continue this partnership throughout the year, and I'm sure we're going to learn much more about other topics also. Thanks, colleagues from UNDP, also to moderating the session. I think this was great. And thanks for the speakers also. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So we will be sharing the report of this session and revised background notes. So we look forward to be in continuous touch with all of you. Thank you very much for your active participation, and I hope a very good rest of the day for all of you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to be part of it.
Bye.